third birthday, despite having been diagnosed with prostate cancer back in 2001. But a row is brewing all around him. With every year that passes, the tension within his family grows. Tensions over everything from his inheritance to his legacy, to the question of what rights to either his many illegitimate children should have. This report by our correspondents in South Africa, Caroline Dumais and Stefan Karstens.
In the Mandela household, it's Mandela who takes charge of family matters. A grandson from Mandela's first marriage, he represents just one branch of the family, and his decisions aren't always popular. He caused a bit of panic when he exhumed his direct forebears and had them reburied here where Nelson Mandela was born. Now the story goes that the great man will also be buried in Mvezo, not in the grounds of his retirement house. Mandela was even accused of selling the South African TV rights to his grandfather's funeral for 300,000 euros. The state broadcaster denies it.
There is no money when it comes to this issue of broadcasting funeral. We don't pay, we don't buy rights from whoever is a public broadcaster. We normally do it, we don't pay anything.
Mandela also insisted on clearing his name.
Will guarantee South Africans that we have not sat in any discussions and not taken any money from any other broadcaster. Those discussions will be held with the people responsible for what is defined as the state funeral.
If people suspect that money has changed hands, it's because everything to do with the Mandela brand is worth a fortune. Take this house where Nelson lived with his second wife, the famous Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Tourists visit every day, and she receives a share of that income. Winnie, for many the mother of the nation, and still active politically. She knows what her name is worth. Winnie didn't get along with Mandela's first wife, but things are better with the woman who replaced her, Graça Machel, whose own children are part of the extended family. It's tricky for the Nelson Mandela Foundation as it tries to satisfy everybody.
He's got 3 surviving daughters. He's got, I don't know how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And I think they quite rightly say that they too should have a say in the utilization of the name Mandela.
Everyone wants a share, including illegitimate children emerging from the shadows, like this lady who says she was the product of a youthful love affair. Her descendants expect their slice of the cake. Behind its solid walls, the multi-million-dollar Mandela Foundation is steeling itself for a succession battle of a special kind.
Well, for more on that, we can now speak to our correspondent in Cape Town, MZ Ferreira. MZ, thanks very much for joining us. First of all, tell us about how Nelson Mandela is and whether he's aware of the controversy that surrounds him.
Well, Mandela appears to have settled permanently in his home in Kunu. He's not returned to his home in Johannesburg since his birthday some 6 weeks ago. At that time, the foundation and the presidency said that he was in good health, and he certainly looked very well in photographs of him and his family that were released to mark the birthday. Because there was an initial lack of information when he was hospitalized in January, and because of the alarm that this caused here, the government has undertaken to keep the public informed of any illness. We don't know to what extent Mandela was informed of the funeral rights controversy. Given his frailness, it's not inconceivable that he shielded from such news. We do know, however, that he sanctioned the reburial of his family members and attended that ceremony.
Is his funeral already a subject of discussion in South Africa?
Well, in fact, the funeral plans have been in place for some time, and the government has informed the major news organizations in South Africa of what will happen. It will stretch out over almost 2 weeks, with plans for the former president to lie in state in Pretoria ahead of his state funeral in the capital, where we're, of course, expecting leaders from all over the world. As far as we know, Mandela will then be taken to Kunu and buried there. These preparations have all been done by the government and the ANC, and this has been a source of some unhappiness for his extended family.
We've been hearing then in that report about that tension within his extended family. Why such tension? Is there a lot of money involved?
There's no question here of a personal fortune. The source of money is rather the copyright to Mandela's name and image. While he was president, he used the commercial rights to his name to gather funds for his party, the African National Congress. Today it's the Nelson Mandela Foundation that manages these rights. They have to authorize the sale of every object that's sold bearing his name or face or his old prisoner's number and the publication of any of his writings. The foundation takes a percentage of sales or publication fees, and it's employed an archivist to compile a database of all these documents and to decide what can be made public and not. The foundation also obviously receives charity donations in Mandela's name. We know that these run into millions every time a major event is organized. It's a trust, so its books are not public. They're only open to scrutiny really by the revenue services. It's expected that Mandela's death will see the sale of objects of personal and political significance, potentially for a lot of money. And then there's, of course, the question of political legacy. And Mandela is seen here as helping the ANC exploit this perhaps too keenly. He was criticized 2 years ago for having Mandela appear at an election rally without the usual safety and medical precautions. And next year marks the centenary of the party, and we can expect the current ANC leadership to seek to align itself very closely with Mandela.
Finally, what sort of share is the family going to get of all that you've mentioned?
Well, the family has links with the foundation, but they're also involved in other projects still that bring in money. His ex-wife Winnie used to run the museum at the former family home in Orlando West in Soweto. And there are also plans to renovate the house in Brantford, to which he was banished for 9 years while Mandela was in prison. We know that Mandela runs the memorial in Mvezo, and he's busy renovating a house in Alexandria, where Mandela lived when he first came to Johannesburg, probably with a view to turning it into a museum.
MC Ferreira, thanks very much indeed for having joined us. That's it for Focus. More news in just a moment.